says, Lord, you're good. Here we go. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Say, Lord, you are good, yeah. That's it. Say, Lord, you are good, yeah. That's it. Say, Lord, you are good, yeah. Oh, Lord, you are good, yeah. And your mercy endureth. Let's say that. Here we go. Say, people from every nation, from generation, we worship. Hallelujah. We worship for who you are. Oh, we worship you. Hallelujah. Oh, we worship you for who you are. And you are good. You are good. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Oh, so good, so good, so good, yeah. Say yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Oh, say, Lord, you are good, yeah. Oh, Lord, you are good, yeah. And your mercy endureth. Oh, come on and sing it with us. Say, Lord, you are good, yeah. And your mercy endureth. Oh, Lord, you are good, yeah. And your mercy endureth. Oh, we worship you. Hallelujah. Oh, we worship you. That you are good. Come on, put those hands together and declare that he's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So good, so good, yeah. Yes, you are, yes, you are, yes, you are. Now, this is my favorite part of the song. It says, you are good all the time, and all the time. You are good, you are good all the time, and all the time. You are good, say you are good all the time. You are good, you are good all the time. Put your hands in the word says, Lord, you are good and your mercy endures forever. People from every nation. That means people here, people all around the world are one day going to get up, run, and go give God the best praise, the highest praise. The Lord, you are good and your mercy endures forever and ever and ever. Amen. Amen. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for today, oh God. Father God, I just thank you for what you're doing right now, God. New Covenant Christian Church, Father God, I thank you, oh God. Father God, come in this place as you always do, Father God. Touch the lives of each and
every person in here, oh God. Touch our preacher on this morning, oh God. Touch our pastor, cover her, oh God. Father God, I pray that you show up and just show out, oh God. Father God, just allow your spirit to just run all up and through this building, oh God. Father God, as the preacher preaches, oh God, Father, I pray that they see you and you alone, oh God. Father God, I pray that someone leaves this building a better person than how they came, oh God. Father God, let them leave and go make somebody else a better person, oh God. Father God, just show up, oh God, be in here as you always do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Come on, sing that. This morning we just want to honor the Lord with a real simple song. There's nothing worth more that will ever be whole. Your presence, Lord. I have tasted and seen of the sweetest of love. When my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Here comes love in this place and feel the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Your presence, Lord. There's nothing that will ever us, Lord. The next part says, I've tasted and seen, say, yeah. When my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Oh, your presence. Let's sing it out. Say, Holy Spirit, you are. Come flood and fill your glory to be over by your presence. That's right there. Say, Holy Spirit, come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory to be over by your presence, Lord. Your presence, oh, your presence, Lord. Oh, your presence, Lord. Let's sing it to the top. Oh, there's nothing worth more. There's nothing worth more that will ever. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Oh, your presence, Lord. Oh, I'm tasted and seen, yeah, of the sweetest of love. When my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Lord, your
like to pray prayers of relief for those affected by the hurricanes around the world, prayers of justice and healing for St. Louis as they deal with not guilty verdicts and corrupt power, prayers of celebration for Lori Wright, who had a successful surgery this week, prayers of continued strength for Miss Jenny, the mother of Elder Valerie Griffin. In New Covenant Christian Church, we pray for Miss Helen, Miss Bright, and Marcellus. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day given unto us. Lord, I thank you for putting clothes on our back this morning. Lord, I ask that you just bless the victims that have lost loved ones in homes in Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma. Lord, as we're going through very racial times with number 45, I ask that you would just be with this country. I ask that you would be with the Congress and help them to make the right decisions so that there will be justice. Lord, be with the preacher as she preaches today. Lord, I ask that you just bless his service. In all this and more, in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good, beautiful morning. If all of our children ages 0 to 11 make their way on up for our children's meditation. All are welcome. Come on down, kids. I see you right there. Other kids. All right. What do I have in my hands right now? Some pencils. What do you know about these? What do you notice?
Some of them are without erasers.
Some of them are without erasers. You write with them.
Some of them are dull.
Some of them are dull. And go ahead. Oh, they're all colors. Some of them are without erasers. Some of them are worn out. Some of them are different sizes. And none of them are exactly the same. And they don't match, right? So, pencils are left behind in my classroom at the end of the day, every day. On the floor. They've been used up. They've been worn out. They've been all over the place. And my kids still like to even use them without erasers. Is that you too? Yeah. And what happens, why do we need to use an eraser? Why do we need?
Because if you make a mistake, you can rewrite it.
That's right. When we make a mistake, we erase it. Over and over again, we're erasing our mistakes and the things. That's how it is in life too. We make a lot of mistakes, and it's okay to make a mistake, and we can erase it and start all over and over again. And these pencils remind me of myself and people and us as kids, that over and over again we come to God with our mistakes. We come to God with all of our different sizes, all of our different races of color, all of our diverse backgrounds, and none of us look the same, do we? If you look around at each other right now, do we look the same? Are we exactly the same? Even if you're a twin, you're still not exactly the same. You're different. Something's different about you. But we all have one thing in common. We've all made a what? Mistake. And that's okay. And that's why God sent who? God sent who? Start this with a J. Jesus. God sent Jesus. Jesus, and He erases our mistakes. He washes away our sins. Just like these pencils. God's eraser, and He never wears out. But the erasers are gone, but God is always there for us. And Jesus always forgives everything to you. You know, I tell my kids always, turn a shoulder, smile at them, and let it go, and forgive them for their mistakes. And maybe tomorrow they'll try better. Think of something positive to turn it around with that child that you have problems with. So one day Peter asked Jesus, how many times should I forgive someone who sins against me, who does something bad against me? Should I forgive them 7 times? But you know what Jesus said? Jesus answered him back, not 7 times, but guess how many times? All the time, but 70 times. Many times. And after a period of time, we're going to forget how many times we forgive them. Over and over again, Jesus forgives us. So we should also forgive those that make mistakes and those that may do bad toward us. Okay? So as you go throughout your week this week, learn to be kind to others. It may not look like you. We may be of all different sizes, and we may make mistakes, but forgive them, and like Jesus forgive us. Okay? All right, let us bow and let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for your children. We give you thanks for forgiving us over and over and over again. Many times you've forgiven our sins, Jesus. And we thank you. Help us, oh Lord, help our children as they go to and from school and to home. Help them to see the goodness and the greatness in everyone, regardless of their shapes, sizes, and differences in colors and races and backgrounds and whatnot. Dear God, help them as children to show love to all and forgive others for their sins and when they make mistakes. We give you thanks and glory and honor. In Jesus' name we pray, what? Amen.
born in the covenant. This is one of my favorite times of the service. Do we have any first-time visitors today? First time? Amen. On behalf of everyone at the beauty company, we thank you for being here. There are many other places you could be, and we're so happy you're here right now. The ushers are coming around to hand you something. And for everyone else, we tell you, you know how we do. Let's get up, stand up, shake a hand, give a hug, something. Come on. I know where I have to see each other. All right. So first we have, so it's almost time for Community Day. So we got some information about Community Day. If you would like to help canvass the community, amen. If you would like to help canvass the community and pass out flyers for Community Day, please come out to the front office directly after service to pick up some of the flyers. Also, the Noah's Ark Encounter, remember that's September 22nd and 23rd. Make payments to New Covenant Ark Trip, and also you can see Elders Beverly Bell or Elders Darlene Royal for more information. Also, on Community Day, please remember to bring the gently used coats and tennis shoes to donate to those in need. Also, we ask that you bring items to be used for door prizes. You can see Elder Royal for more information on that. And if you are donating gift cards for the Community Day, door prizes, or gift baskets, you can see Elder Valerie Griffin. And lastly, please join our regional minister, Reverend Dr. Crystal Williams, for a town hall meeting concerning the Tennessee region. You can see tndisciples.org/events for more information. Thank you. And our pastor has a few more announcements.
Amen. Good morning to the church. I am still on cloud 9. Last Saturday and Sunday was more than I could have imagined. It was over the top, phenomenal. Thank you, New Covenant, from the bottom of my heart. And I see that my 2017 Pastor's Appreciation Chair, Trina Frison, is not here. I guess she's taking a rest. But I know that she had a wonderful team working with her. Come on, Chantel, because I know. Had a wonderful team working with her. Because you cannot do that kind of work by yourself. And back in, well, now 40 years ago, when Charles and I helped to found Temple Baptist Church, our pastor, Michael Lee Graves, had a saying. He said, teamwork, dream work takes teamwork. Amen. I know Tara has put a different spin on it, but this was 40 years ago. My pastor said, dream work takes teamwork. And it does. It takes a team to make the dream work. And I'm so thankful and grateful, New Covenant, for how every time we get ready to do something, whatever it is, no matter how big or how small it is, somehow, some way, you all pull together and it happens. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. When I walked in last Saturday and saw how beautiful the fellowship hall was, transformed into a jazz nightclub. It was just beautiful. So Tammy, I want to thank you for working with Trina. I have something for you here. For working with Trina, and not just with that, but Saturday, Sunday, she said, Pastor, I'm giving you my 110%, but it was more than 110%. And, you know, every pastor knows who they can count on. Amen. And here at New Covenant, I don't have just a few. I have a whole lot of folks I can count on. And I'm just grateful that you're one of those that I can count on. So I have a gift here for you because I love you so much. And I know you went above and beyond, and then even more so. So thank you. And then, come on, Chantel. Chantel's here to help me because I don't want to miss anybody. Ernest, come on up. Thank you so much, Ernest, for... And what I'm giving out here, you know, in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, the chalice, the symbol of the chalice, this cup means a lot to us. It's the chalice. It reminds us of this table that we come to every Sunday where everybody is welcome. And this chalice for us holds the precious blood of Jesus. And then this cross that kind of leans sideways is the St. Andrew's cross, but I like to think of it leaning sideways because none of us stand up straight, right? We all kind of leaning. And so the gifts that I'm giving out all have those symbols on it. The ladies are getting these beautiful necklaces with the silver necklaces with the chalice. They can show them to you. And the men are getting these beautiful pins. So Ernest, thank you so much for all that you do for the covenant. You want to go with me, you lean sideways. But whenever I need you, you're straight on. You're spot on. So thank you. And thank you for the beautiful roses too. I have a card for you all, so I'll get to you after church. I love you more. Cheryl. Amen. Come on, I know you hate it. Come on. Come on up here. Amen. Cheryl, you stepped in. Cheryl and I fuss. And we go back and forth. Because one of these days, you're going to get it. I walked in this morning and Matt, our security guard, said this. He said, Pastor, one day, he said, I love this church. And this is the first church I've worked at that I love coming to every Sunday. I look forward to coming here every Sunday. And he said, one of the reasons I look forward to coming here is because even though you're the pastor, and yes, you're Dr. Cummings, he said, you're not Dr. Cummings. He said, you're, hey girl, how you doing? What you doing, girl? How was your week? And Cheryl, that's just who I am. And you're going to get that one day. I know you love your pastor, you and Alice, and y'all want me to be. But I'm just Diane from the south side of Chicago. I love you. Thank you for loving your pastor. Stop complaining, Cheryl. You know you want that hug. For your team, thank you. Beverly Bell. Oh, don't be sitting there looking like, oh. I know you love me. Nobody else in this church loves me. You do. And it shows through. So genuinely. In the background, I know. Yeah. It ain't always out front, but I want you to know I see your heart. Yeah. Right back then, Pastor. I know this is going to take a long time, but I'm not preaching today. Darlene. My little church mouse. When y'all ain't here, Darlene's here. When y'all show up, you see she's been here. Thank you, I love you. Harwell. My other church mouse. One of these days, you know what I'm talking about. Leah, where's she at? Oh, she had down in the pews. Come on. 7 years ago. I know I'm not going to cry. There was 4 people in the choir, and Leah and Jesse came, and that's all I'm going to say. And now she done grew the church with her family. Larry, Deacon Pointer, come on, Deacon. Luke, Larry, they got my back, y'all. I don't have to worry. Deacon Cummings, don't have to worry. I told somebody I have 40 members, 30 of them I'm packing. Come on, Deacon Cummings. Come on, Deacon Elder Bell. These are my 2 husbands right here. I got something special for y'all. I know she's back there working. Come on, Monet. Now the little church mouse. Thank you so much for all that you do. Elder Bill. All right. Caggie, where's she at? Come on, Caggie. Let me tell y'all, Elder Bill works a full-time job. But this man right here has my heart for you all. All right. All right. See, I love y'all so much, and I want you all to have so much, and he knows, and Khaki knows the resources and where to go and how to get it and what to do. And even though, come on up here, Khaki, even though they're at work, they do it, all right. Services, jobs, utilities. And helping people. If I had a social services ministry, this is it right here. Thank you, elders. I know. Elder Lockridge. This is my elder. This woman prays for me. She keeps me straight. I left to go out of town Monday to go to do some anti-racism training for the Disciples of Christ for Tennessee, and I got an award. I got the Medal of Honor Award for the NAACP. And of course, I couldn't be there to get the award, so I called Elder Lockridge and Darlene. I said, I'm getting this award. I need y'all to go get this award. And I called her. They go. She is Reverend Pastor Judy Cummins around Nashville. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is our elder right here. Thank you so much, elder. Sister Bright. I'm so glad she's here today. Mother Taylor. These are the church ladies. These are my church mothers. Faithful. Is Ernestine here? Ernestine, come on up here. Faithful. Come on, Ernestine. She's gonna, I already know she's gonna fuss that. It don't matter. She's gonna fuss that. But these women right here, faithful. I'm so thankful for you all. This, my church mama. I love you all. They were here way before I got here. They prayed for me. Sister Bright's daughter, Deborah, was chair of the Pulpit Search Committee. Led the church in calling me to be here. And I'm eternally grateful for the wisdom that these three women represent in this church. Thank you, mothers of the church. If we had the title mothers, that's who you would be. I call mother because of the wisdom. Our roots are in you, and we honor you. So thank you for being Virgin, come here. I was at a function. I was somewhere. And probably at a funeral. And what was your father's last name? The Van Burens. And somebody said, oh, I used to go to that church. And I know Ernestine, and I know the Van Burens, and I said, they knew everybody. And I said, well, they're all still there. And they're waiting on you to come in. Virgie is the pillar of this church. Her ancestors here. When I talk about the DNA of this church, Virgie knows what I'm talking about. And I take very serious the assignment that God gave me in this church. Last year, Virgie was honored by our new regional minister and president. And when Virgie shared the history that is so rich, I thought, yes, that's why God put me and this church together. Virgie doesn't always like to be out front, up front. But you know, sometimes we have no choice, Virgie. And people just need to sometimes hear from you. Because sometimes in culture we lose so much of our history. Don't ever let it be lost. God bless you. I love you. I'm going to stop now. I could go home, you know. Some folk are not here. Elder Valerie, my prayer warrior, who prays for me. Every day. She does. She's not kidding. Every day. Trey. My worship leader. My son. We're watching this one. Covenant, thank you for all the gifts. You all gave me beautiful new towels in every color. Thank you. Thank you so much. I need them. For all that you do, thank you. Sister Ruthie, somebody take her gift for always being there with us for Community Day. Thank you so much. I love you, I love you, I love you. See, I'm going to forget somebody. Oh, Chantel, you sit back here. Come on, me. Are you back there behind that glass? Come on up here, Jerry. Is Chris back there? Come on up here, Jerry. All right, the man behind the glass. But every now and then he pokes his head out. Didn't he poke his head out Saturday night, y'all? With that spoken word. Oh, yes, he did. Thank you. Amen. I'm going to stop so the preacher can get up. Oh, my good friend is here today. Come on up here, Tennessee Michael. Tennessee Michael is in the house, y'all. He hasn't been here in a year. It's been a year, but he's all retired now. Don't he look good? Come on up here, Tennessee Michael. I'm going to let him use my microphone. I don't let nobody use my microphone. I'm going to let my friend. Tennessee Michael and I worked together at St. Thomas Hospital for a number of years, and I retired, he retired, and now he's retired again. And he's here today to minister to us in song. And I'm grateful. He has an open invitation to come to New Covenant. He wants to join. He's so busy traveling. He just got back from England. And his good friend is here today.
Lady Lauren Maddox.
Lady Lauren Maddox with her two pugs. We got dogs in worship. I tell you, I just love New Covenant. We just open and welcoming to everybody. We've got dogs in worship. But you know what? We've had dogs before. So they're not the first. I'm sorry. They're not the first. I'm sorry. But thank you for being here, lady. He just got back from England and he's going to sing two of my favorite songs. So do y'all mind if I worship? Come on, Michael. This is Tennessee Michael.
First of all, I'd like to say that she has always had a servant's heart. Way back in the day at St. Thomas, she was the charge nurse for the floor. She was doing God's work at St. Thomas Hospital. And now she's the voice to people when they don't have a voice. When they don't have a home, she helps them find a home. When they don't have food, she helps them find food. She feeds them. When they can't pay their light bill, she gets the light bill paid. And somebody told me she might be running for vice mayor. And boy, would she be a wonderful vice mayor. Now, I don't usually talk about politics, but I want to say one thing. A few weeks ago, Mr. Trump, in just a few words, in Charlottesville, Virginia, he did enough damage with those words that he destroyed what some of us have been working for. Martin Luther King worked for, John F. Kennedy worked for, and all of us worked for. What he did was he gave the haters that had been hiding up in their house permission to go out in the streets and hate again. And they think it's okay. And Lord, I just want to ask you to bless this great nation. Take the hate out of the hearts. Put God into their hearts. And put love into their hearts. The first song I'm going to sing today was written by one of my very dearest friends, the queen of gospel music, Miss Dottie Rambo. This is called Sheltered in the Arms of God. Dottie was on a beach down in Narvar, Florida. And you know when a storm comes, all kinds of mess comes up from the waters. All kinds of mess is laying on the ocean side. Dottie just gone through a divorce and had her first back surgery. She was looking for the words to open the song. She said, Lord, I've got the song, but I can't find the beginning. And then she felt a hand that felt so kind and so tender. She got the words. God gave her the words. And this is called Sheltered in the Arms. I feel the touch of hands so kind and tender. They're leading me in the path that I must trod. I'll have no fear. Oh, what a promise. 'Cause Jesus walks beside me. And I'm sheltered in the arms of God. So let the storms rage high, the dark clouds rise, they don't worry me. 'Cause I'm sheltered safe within the arms of God. He walks with me, and not a birth can harm me. For I'm sheltered in the arms of God. Now listen to this. Soon I shall hear the goodness, I do these two songs, and Precious Lord, almost at every funeral, everybody wants these songs. I never tire of singing them. You all know it. If you know it, sing along with me. Just a closer walk. I am weak, but thou art strong. Oh, Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk. Let me walk close to thee. Just a closer walk to thee. Granny Jesus is my plea. Day walking close to thee. Let it be. Oh, dear Lord, let it be. My feeble life is o'er. Time for thee, Lord, it'll be no more. God save me, gently to thy shore. Oh, to thy kingdom shore. One more time. I said, a closer walk with thee. Granny Jesus is my plea. Day walking close to thee. Let it be. Oh, dear Lord, let it be. God bless you.
Good morning, New Covenant Church. Thanking Pastor Cummings for allowing me to stand before you on today, for being my pastor, for being a wonderful shepherd of this New Covenant Christian Church. I am always humbled to be before you to spread the gospel good news of Christ. And I'm just asking that you will pray with me before I get started. Gracious God, help us in this moment to take a closer walk with me. I'm asking that you would drive out any distractions, any worries, any doubts, any fears, God, and just allow us to commune with you this moment, God. And now as we move to the preaching hour, I ask that you would hide me behind the cross, God, that people would see none of me and all of thee. God, you know my weaknesses and I know your strengths, so let's use those together to accomplish what your word does best, and that's to set free, deliver, and save. I ask these in your darling son Jesus' name, amen. Amen. This morning the text is going to come from Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. I'm going to give you a few moments to turn there. I'm going to read into your hearing the New Revised Standard Version. Say amen when you got it. Amen. The text reads, Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. I'm going to talk to you from the subject of misfit faith. A misfit faith. In a small town in Arkansas several years ago was a little girl who loved to play outside with the other kids from the neighborhood. This town that she lived in was pretty diverse. Blacks and whites who went to school together and even lived in the same neighborhoods. It was the type of town that seemed pretty idyllic on the surface, but that reality was soon interrupted when the little girl was called a nigger by her best friend, who was also her next door neighbor. The neighbor didn't mean to call the little black girl out of her name. She was only repeating something her grandfather had told her. But it didn't much matter what the neighbor meant, because significant damage had caused harm to the girl by the use of a name that did not belong to her. What is more, the little black girl let the name she was called create boundaries and definitions of where she could and could not go to find acceptance. No longer did she feel a sense of belonging with people who didn't look like her. Permeating the rest of her school years was the awareness that she was a misfit. And as a result, she learned that the misfit caused her to miss out on the power that comes from pushing past boundaries. Boundaries created by oppressive structures affect all of us at some point in our lives. We are labeled by our appearances far before we are loved for our humanity. And these labels, these assignments, these derogatory names follow us around, constantly reminding us that we are misfits, that we simply do not belong. Yet I'm so encouraged by the woman from Canaan, whose misfit faith allowed her to resist hatred and request wholeness. I'm hoping that we can learn something from a misfit's faith this morning, something that will help us, heal us, and make us new. I'm heading into the text. It is imperative that we understand the context and the background of the woman from Canaan, because without it, we will misunderstand the exchange between her and Jesus, and as a result, misappropriate what the text in Matthew truly means. You see, oftentimes we narrowly describe Canaanite people based on our own biblical biases and assume that they just must have been a bad bunch of folks. This is because in Exodus, we see God proclaiming that the Israelites will be delivered from slavery in Egypt and will be given a land flowing with milk and honey. Yet this same land was the original home of the Canaanites. Clearly, if God ordained the chosen people to take the land of the Canaanites, they must have deserved to have their land stolen. What is more is that in Deuteronomy, the Hebrew Bible records the litany of abominations that the Canaanites were responsible for. Sadly, God ultimately calls for the destruction of the Canaanites in order to make way for the Israelites to inherit the land that was promised to them. Well, what's the big deal, Reverend? God said it, so that settles it, you say. Let's pause here and really think critically and spiritually about the implication of the promised land in relation to the Canaanites. I'm all for divine appointment and believing in the fullness of the promise of God, but let us be deliberate about considering how the deliverance of the Israelites created the displacement of and discrimination against the people of Canaan. In the same way that we know and understand that Columbus did not find nor discover America, we must also give credence to the fact that the promised land was not inhabited by the Israelites first. This land that you and I are standing on and living in today, while it may have been promised to Columbus and his crew, this land belonged to the indigenous peoples first. In the same way that colonizers and settlers created the narrative that Native Americans were savage, lesser beings, is the same way we allow our biblical readings and interpretations to lessen the value of certain folk in Scripture. Be clear, beloved, I'm not suggesting that God should not have had a covenant with that designated the people of Israel as chosen. That's God's business and not mine. But what I am suggesting to you, dear friends, is that designations of priority for one group of people can create negative stereotypes and definitions for another group of people. These same stereotypes and definitions can lead to maltreatment of a group of people who are unchosen, and result in boundaries that keep us from being in true relationship with those who are deemed misfits. The same way the little girl was called the N-word simply because of the color of her skin is the same way the people of Canaan were demonized because of the customs of the region they were originally from. Everyone knew that the people from Canaan, which is located in present-day Syria, were not insiders. The Greco-Roman world considered Canaanites beneath them, and the Jewish occupiers of the Roman Empire still considered them unchosen, as history had proven. Because of this, people from Canaan had to navigate the world, always aware of who they were in others' eyes, and understand the boundaries they were not to cross over. We all understand what boundaries are, don't we? Regardless of if they are physical boundaries or ideological boundaries, they certainly exist. For instance, there are certain places in the southern states of this nation that people of color know not to drive at night. Places marked by Confederate flags and burning crosses. Or the wall that P45 wants to continue building to keep our Mexican neighbors from entering into this country. Or gentrification, which continues to push certain people out and invite more important people in. Or legislation seeking to end affordable health care, which would deny life, liberty, and freedom to millions. Or churches that refuse to welcome those with varying sexualities and identities because they would rather condemn them to hell. Or companies that choose not to hire you based on your past. Boundaries work to keep us feeling like we are misfits who have no business wanting equality, justice, and wholeness. As the woman from Canaan enters the place where Jesus is, she understands full well that she is a misfit. Yet she does not allow the past nor the ideologies concerning the Israelite and Canaanite relations dictate the outcome of her situation. You see, the woman from Canaan was in need of something, and if she had waited on the world to give it to her, she would have died still waiting. So instead, she bravely and boldly exercised her faith, a misfit faith to get some FaceTime with the Father, a misfit faith to get a meeting with Mother God, a misfit faith to have a little talk with Jesus so that her daughter could be made whole. So how then did the woman from Canaan successfully exercise misfit faith? I'm so glad you asked. The answer brings me to my first point. Here's the principle. A misfit faith means you must prioritize your beliefs over your boundaries. You must prioritize your beliefs over your boundaries. In the text, the woman didn't let who she wasn't deter her from who God was. Though the woman wasn't Jewish, therefore she was not chosen, she did not let her ethnicity stop her from believing in God's ability to heal. She did not let who she wasn't stop her from believing in what God could do. I want you to imagine if we let boundaries dictate to us where we could and could not go, or determine the beliefs we held. Where would we be if Harriet Tubman had let the boundary of slavery keep her from freedom? Where would we be if Claudette Colvin or Rosa Parks had let the boundary of Jim Crowism keep them from demanding equality? And what about you? Where would you be if you let your past become a boundary keeping you away from God's presence? Where would you be if you let generational curses become the boundaries that kept you away from God's power? Where would you be if you let other people's expectations of you become the boundary that kept you from believing God's promises? You see, despite the reputation of the Canaanites being sinful pagan people, the woman did not let those negative stereotypes stop her from proclaiming that which she believed. You see, beloved, she believed that Jesus was the son of David, the descendant of the true king of Israel. And rather than let historical conflict between the Israelites and Canaanites stop her, she let the fullness of her belief in Jesus' throne give her access to the care she needed. So then, New Covenant, I'm going to ask you this morning, given that this woman had the audacity to believe God enough to breach the boundaries of chosenness, How big are your beliefs? How valid is your faith in who God is? How brazen is your trust in God's ability? How bold is your confidence in God's power? In other words, New Covenant, can your faith break through the walls of white supremacy? Can your faith break through the walls of misogyny and gender oppression? Can your faith break through the walls of evil, sin, and darkness? Can your faith break through unjust policies and police brutality? Can your faith break through walls of privilege and corrupt power? Turn to your neighbor and say, build beliefs, not boundaries. Y'all a little quiet this morning. Y'all gonna have to talk back to me. I'm gonna take my time up here. Moving forward in the text, we see the disciples responding to the Canaanite woman's request for mercy. The disciples, rather than looking at the woman with empathy, asked Jesus to place more barriers between her and them, saying, send her away, for she keeps shouting after us. What proceeds then from Jesus' mouth is certainly a little baffling, but is indicative of the boundaries that chosenness required. Jesus then answered, I was sent only to the lost house of Israel. From what I gather, Jesus was not necessarily trying to be exclusionary, but he was aware of the complicated history of Canaan, of the power of the Roman Empire, and of his Jewish descent. In the same way the woman was navigating the boundaries of her ethnicity in a Roman society, Jesus was navigating the boundaries of his humanity in the midst of his divinity. You see, he could not pretend that he was not a Jew he could not pretend that he was not a Jew and that she was not also a Gentile. But this is where the moment between the Canaanite woman and the Jewish Jesus gets real good. Watch this. Yeah. Even though the structures that be had pushed the woman of Canaan to the margins of what is socially acceptable, she did not retreat to the fringes of what was spiritually accessible. This brings me to my second point, and here's the principle. A misfit faith means you must position yourself in the line of fire. A misfit faith means you must position yourself in the line of fire. You see, it's our tendency to run from places where we might get burned or have the potential to get bruised. It is our human nature to put up our defenses when attack is imminent. Yet the woman from Canaan did neither of these things. Even after Jesus had made it clear that his mission was first to the people of Israel, she stayed and knelt down before him, insisting that he care also about the people of Canaan. This brave and brazen woman is showing us that a misfit faith is one that understands that faithfulness ain't always comfortable or convenient. A misfit faith is one that understands that faithfulness requires us to be in spaces where we are unwanted. A misfit faith is one that understands that faithfulness means sometimes we got to get down low while others are sitting up high. A misfit faith is one that understands that faithfulness will cause us to humble ourselves even when we know we are right. A misfit faith is one that understands that faithfulness can transcend and transform boundaries, even the divine boundaries drawn by God. But first you got to be willing to position yourself in the line of fire. Do I have some folks who are willing to be on the front line with me today? Some folks willing to position yourself in the line of fire? Before y'all get the clapping too quick and shouting too loud, make sure you check yourself. Because some of y'all know God can't even depend on you to get on the serving line, much less get in the line of fire. That's what it takes. And that's a misfit faith. We're going to get some folks right up in here today, Pastor. Moving along, because I got to get to this last point so I can close this sermon out.
Come on now, take your time.
By now, we have seen that we have to prioritize our beliefs over boundaries. And then we decided that we must also position ourselves in the line of fire. Let's see what this woman from Canaan does next to teach us about a misfit faith. While the woman is still kneeling down and bowing before Jesus, still seeking healing for her daughter, Jesus tries the woman, saying, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. This response from Jesus was not necessarily intended to be derogatory. However, the fact of the matter is, Jesus' comparison of the woman's status to that of a dog was part and parcel of the boundaries stemming from chosenness versus unchosenness. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Rather than get big mad, the woman from Canaan got back at the Messiah, saying, yet even the dogs are still able to eat the crumbs from their master's table. This brings me to my third and final point. The principle is this. A misfit faith means you must purpose your womb to do the work. You must purpose your womb to do the work. The woman from from Canaan didn't get all up in arms and curse Jesus out like some of us would do. I know some of us are thinking, I wish a joker would call me a dog to my face. Yet the woman from Canaan didn't get salty, she got smart. Instead, she used what she was called to call God's hand. She subverted the demeaning insult into a divine interaction. She used the womb to do the work. Some of y'all are still looking at me like you're a little confused this morning. Let me explain it to you this way. Soon after integration started, there was an international flight that was headed from the U.S. to Europe. And on that flight, there was a diverse crowd. You had black folk, and you had white folk, and you had Asian folk, and Italian folk, and Latino folk flying all together for the very first time. It was like the Rainbow Coalition. The flight was a long overnight flight, and the passengers began bedding down their seats to sleep through the night. Just then, the pilot comes over the intercom and says, "Passengers, we are experiencing too much turbulence, and we have lost engine number 1. We are going to have to turn the plane around." Alarmed, the passengers prepare to return home. When a few moments later, the pilot comes back over the intercom saying they had lost engine number 2 and that they must begin offloading some of the cargo if they ever expect to live. Keep following me. After all the cargo was gone, the stewardess came in and announced that they still weren't going to make it, and as a result, they needed people to start jumping. The passengers began arguing and panicking, trying to figure out who should jump first. The stewardess finally got everybody quiet and pronounced that they would go in alphabetical order based on ethnicity. Watch this. That would mean, of course, that the African Americans would have to jump first. Every single black person on that plane looked at each other and grinned, keeping their seatbelts on. The stewardess turned to them, perplexed by their calmness, and asked, "Afro-Americans, why are you not preparing yourselves to jump?" Not making a movement and beaming with pride, they answered, "That's because we're going to be Negroes today." That you would be able to turn those narrow definitions into enough if you but kind of faith. A kind of faith like Ruth. A kind of faith like Ruth, who said, "I may be a Moabite, but I know more about the true and living God than most of you do." A kind of faith like Rahab, who said, "I may be a prostitute, but I have a plan to be a prophet." A kind of faith like Balaam's donkey, who said, "I may be an ass, but I've got an assignment." Faith like Barack, who said, "I may be a Negro, but I'm still going to be your next president." You see, beloved, the black folks on that plane knew how to turn the boundary of the N-word into working for their good. Just like the Canaanite woman knew how to turn the boundary of unchosenness into receiving her daughter's wholeness. You got to purpose the womb to do the work. Beloved, I believe what God is saying in this season, a season where folks are being counted out and picked on, a season where folk are being singled out and sent back across the border, a season where folk are being ridiculed for not meeting the status quo, for not being born with certain privileges, for simply being a misfit. I believe that God is saying that just because you are a misfit doesn't mean God was mistaken. Just because your skin is brown, or your thighs too big, or you got a felony on your record, or your parents were poor, or you didn't go to college, or your family migrated to this country, just because there are certain barriers around you does not mean that God has not already gone before you. Every barrier, knocking down every high place, raising up every low place, straightening out every crooked place, so that you would be able to exercise your jacked up, imperfect, unwelcome, misfit faith. Let me remind you that it's a misfit named Joseph, given away by his brothers, who was responsible for restoring his family in a time of famine. Let me remind you it's a misfit named Moses, a child of Israel raised by Egyptian Pharaoh, who was responsible for organizing the Jewish Lives Matter movement. It's a misfit named Trina, a woman who made a few mistakes, who's responsible for mending the hearts of hundreds of women in Europe. It's a misfit named Bobby, born as a white Jew, he was responsible for co-parenting a beautiful Ethiopian daughter named It's a misfit named Judy, the first woman ordained under Bishop Graves, who was responsible for creating equal opportunities here in Nashville. It's a misfit named Chantel, who's responsible for being the first black chaplain on Vanderbilt. God stopped by to tell you on today. That now is the time that we've got to cry out a misfit faith. A faith that won't be fooled by bureaucracy. A faith that cannot be bought or broken. A faith that refuses to create unwelcome boundaries and sell them as righteous beliefs. A faith that insists that the love of God doesn't have boundaries, but rather that it is borderless. A faith that knows that God is real and God reigns over Trump and tyrants and terrorists. A faith that knows that the N-word ain't the end of the story. A faith that knows that documents aren't what make you a true citizen. A faith that knows that you don't have to be a child of privilege to be a child of God. A faith that knows that solutions can't come from staying segregated in the same circles. A faith that knows that no bounds of God's love and no barriers to God's spirit. A faith that says there are some places that I cannot go, but I am sure of this one thing: my God is real, or I can feel and I know.
There are some things I do not know. There are some places that I can go, but I am sure of this one thing, that God is real. Him in my soul. Oh, yes, God is real. He's real in my soul. God is real. In my dear Lord. Yes, God is real. Oh, yes, God is real. He's real in my soul. God is real.
So you are welcome. You can come down. If you're ready to turn your life around, if you know that God has a plan for you, don't you come? Come on.
they said, well, I'm not going to come. And I'm like, look, you might not be coming, but I'm coming. I need a word from the Lord. That was a word from the Lord. Thank you, Reverend. When I saw the title, Misfit Faith, I thought, that's a word for the pastor today. So thank you so much for handling that text. It was indeed a word for the house today. Today. Amen. Where did Deacon Christy Mars go? She came in and then she left right back. Deacon Mars?
She'll be back.
Okay. All right.
Good morning, church. It's offering time. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17 says, tell those who are rich in this world and not to trust in their money, which will soon be gone, but their trust should be a living God, who richly gives us as we need for our enjoyment. This means we should trust in God, because He does His very best. Also, He provides and gives us what we need. There are several ways to give. There's the offering tray, kiosk, and online. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving your best to every day. Thank you for providing food and shelter. I ask that you bless the ones that could and could not come. Also, can you help us to have a good rest of the day? In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Regional level, she's also over our district, our region for the women's disciples women. And so she has been with disciples women this weekend and was there yesterday at Montgomery Bell State Park, came home last night, got up this morning, went back to Montgomery Bell State Park, came down the mountain today to get here to New Covenant Christian Church, to get onto her phone to make sure that Chantel was on Facebook Live, which she does every Sunday to make sure that our worship service is on Facebook Live every Sunday morning. And then not only does she do that, but now she's also just stepped up to become next year the president of Disciples Village, which is our seniors retirement home. So God has blessed her tremendously, and I just want to thank you. I gave out gifts today, not just for what people did for Pastor's Appreciation, but just what you all do. And I know you love me, but I have a gift here for you. Because I love all of y'all. If I could have got gifts for everybody, it don't all right. If y'all say, Pastor, you didn't give me no gift. That's charge it to my heart, not to my head. I'm gonna get some more gifts. Now she got to get up there and pray.
Yeah. Amen.
This week I was riding my bicycle home from work and saw what I thought was a familiar and somewhat disturbing bumper sticker on an SUV that was parked along the street. It said, "Build a wall, make America great again." And as I passed through it was drizzling a little bit, so it could have been part of it, but as I passed, I thought I sensed there was something more than just the encoded white supremacy and racism of 45's campaign pledge in the bumper sticker. So I circled the block, and sure enough, and this is a bumper sticker that was made factory manufactured, so it wasn't just something doctored by an individual, but not that would be a problem. But anyway, where the word wall was, it was crossed out with an X and bridge was written above it. And on the second line, where the word great was, there was an X through it and whole, W-H-O-L-E was the So the bumper sticker read, "Build a bridge, make America whole again." Last week, Patty stood at this table and reminded us that as members of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, we are part of a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. Nowhere do we embody that wholeness more than at this table each week when we gather and share this meal. For not only are we restored to God and to one another, but nourished by this bread and this cup, we are strengthened to go forth to repair the many breaches that, as this week's unconscionable verdict in St. Louis reminded us yet again, continue to divide and terrorize our world.
Let us pray. Dear God, we come and we thank you, we praise you for your misfit son, Jesus, oh God. We thank you for the misfit faith that allowed his body to be broken, oh God, for us, oh God. Dear God, we thank you for his life. We thank you for this bread, and we ask that it will just continue to bless, lead, and guide, oh God. We just thank you for all things, especially your son, Jesus. And it's in his name that we give you all glory, honor, and praise. Amen. This comes from this morning as I was up at Montgomery Bell State Park. We took communion and we said these words, "Come to the table of grace. This is Christ's table, not just yours or mine. Come to the table of peace. This is Christ's table, not just yours or mine. Come to the table of love. This is Christ's table, not just yours or mine. Come to the table of joy. This is Christ's table, not just yours or mine. As we drink of the cup which represents Christ's blood shed for us, we thank you, God, for the new covenant. Love ye one another, which is written on our hearts. Let us rejoice because our names are written in heaven. Amen.
On the night in which he was betrayed, Jesus took the bread, and after he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it to his disciples and said, "This is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he took the cup, and after he blessed it, he gave it to his disciples and said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, shed for you for the remission of sins. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me." Let us drink.
have one more gift I want to give. Deacon Thomas Taylor. Deacon Taylor continues to bless our church. He doesn't want it, but you know, nobody want a gift. But God gives us gifts. And you're a gift to this church. You're a gift to your pastor. And I receive you as such. And as such, I want to give this gift to you. Because you're that. So thank you for all that you do. He's another little church mouse. Another little church mouse. So thank you. And I love you dearly. I'm hard on you. Because I'm your pastor. And I see the greatness in you. Amen. Tennessee Michael, God bless you. Thank you for coming and blessing us. From the bottom of my heart.
As we depart from this place, may you be reminded that unwelcoming boundaries are not any place for our beliefs, but that we as disciples of Christ must love beyond ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion. Now may God make his face to shine upon you